our video right now.
Good morning. Happy Saturday, everybody. Super excited to be here. And it's our typical Saturday date mornings. Just give me a couple seconds. I'm live streaming to everywhere else. We live stream in YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. That's what I was waiting for. And now I just need to find my own profile so I can make adjustments or settings so we can get going. I think that you guys are going to find our topic this week really interesting. But as we wait for a few people to jump on, if you're new, my name is Libby Chris, and we're business owner. I'm an entrepreneur. Chris works in one of the businesses, and we just share our journey about like, how is it working with your spouse? Like, how is it running a business? How is it being married to an entrepreneur on both sides? And we share everything from personal to health journey to business lessons. And last week we talked about, I don't even remember what we talked about last week.
It was kind of a bridge into this week, but a lot to do with kids and.
Oh, was it the kids? Sex and rock and roll week?
It wasn't it? Every week is kids, sex, and rock and roll.
I don't remember, but I'll have to go back and look. But this week, we are currently noticing this, and the topic is driven or neglected. Are your kids on board with your goals?
That should be a category in Jeopardy, by the way.
Yeah, who's driven or neglected? The kids are driven, or they're
the kids.
Okay, are they driven to help us, or are we neglecting them?
Right.
Is the question. So the reason this came up was because I woke up and on one of our walks, we do a walk every morning. We call it our date morning. I looked at Chris and I told him that I feel like a crappy mom. And I feel like a crappy mom. And why? And if you've ever experienced that, I would just, be frank and be upfront and say but I feel like a crappy mom because I have been working so much. And I'm like, man. And then, I'm on this health journey. I've been on it for like 3 years, and the last 6 months has been really the most transformational part. I share that over on Instagram if you guys are interested. But, with the health journey, like me eating different things, it's affected like family style eating and like that dinner. And then over the last few weeks, I have had my head down, just like working. And I looked up at Chris and I said, I feel like a horrible mother. And, how do I align our kids on this goal, on this journey? And the other struggle is I want to know how many of you guys like work from home or work around your kids. How do you deal with kids while working from home? Like Austin gets out of school at 1:30. I'm here, but I'm not here because I'm still working, and he's like, hey, can we do this? Can we go there? I need a ride here. I got basketball practice at 2. I'm like, dude, I got a job. So, for all of our entrepreneur parents or just parents in general, how do your kids understand your goals, right? Are you driven or are you neglecting them? Are they driven with you or are you neglecting them? And then how do you work remotely when you have kids and they may see your face, they may see you're there, but you're not there?
Yeah. And I say this is even harder with smaller kids because they haven't learned yet like what it is that you're doing. I want to say that Yaya gets the idea and gets the understanding. We've little bits and pieces here and there. But if you haven't yet talked to them about like what you do or stuff like that, then they're starting from zero and they just see you.
Total misalignment.
And I mean, I've seen cases where like somebody's trying to have a business conversation and the kid is just literally stomping all over their face and just, like shaking them like, mom. And it's just, there's no separation.
Yeah. So this is something we struggle with. Like, we're just being completely transparent, honest. We homeschool Yaya. Austin goes to public school, but You know, and we both work from home. It's also learning that, like, he would come ask me something, I'm like, dude, I'm working right now. Or vice versa. So I know that with the way the world changed, at least all of our listeners, you're at least in one of these categories. Either you work with your spouse, or someone works from home, or you both work from home, or you have children and you're trying to balance, how do I work from home but not neglect my kids, but you know, how do I have that balance?
And even to the point of, if you're driven, like the whole idea of being driven and having big goals is, how the hell do you shoot for those big goals if there's always this person or something that's, you know, vying for your attention, or taking wanting that attention from you, but you want to keep going.
Yeah. On my 2025 goals or vision board, it was on my goals or my vision board, I don't remember. I have to not cook, to not cook. And, you know, I'm like, man, yes, I get it. And we had someone who was cooking for us, and unfortunately she left, she moved. So I need to find that person again. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, is that realistic, or am I setting myself up to fail? Because I love like cooking breakfast for the kids. But anyways, we're going to go back to the neglect, or are they driven with you? How do you get your kids on board? I think this is a great topic. I interviewed someone on my podcast this week. If you guys don't know, I have a podcast called Fearlessness, and he was $116,000 in debt and had small children. And the way his story of how he shared that with me, I was like, oh my God, that was a great idea. You know, he got his wife on board. They got their kids to understand. What they created was a link chain made out of construction paper. The kids made it, and every link in the chain represented $1,000. And, you know, they hung it up, he said, in a common area in the house. And so the kids understood like why dad was working late, or why his head was down in the computer. And that the kids got to cut the links as they contributed $1,000 to that $116,000 debt. I thought, wow, what a great analogy. It's a chain. It feels like it, but also to get the kids on board. How do you get your kids on board, or even your spouse?
Yeah. When
you own it. You know, this is a little bit to do with either when you own a business or when you work from home. That kind of goes hand in hand. But how do you accomplish this? It was really hard at the beginning with Yaya. She knows I would lock my door, and she can get a butter knife and unlock the door and come in and say like, hey mom, I'm hungry. I'm like, dude, the door's locked.
Yeah.
But at 6, she's just now understanding, like, we are working. But Chris, if you want to tell them, how did you work her up to that? What are the things that you did?
Yeah. So again, it's work in progress is what it is. But for Yaya, let's just say that, you know, for us, we're always on Zoom. We're always in meetings. We're always working to some capacity, and we try to carve out the time outside of, you know, work time to be dedicated to family. But that time, you're home, she's home, because she's homeschooled, and, you know, she gets back either early, or there's some days that she doesn't go to homeschool. And so
she's homeschooled, but she goes to the neighbor's house for 3 days a week.
Yeah. Which, by the way, she's amazing, and hopefully she's watching.
She's probably watching.
Yeah. But, you know, for the days that we have her, and it's kind of this mix, is how the heck did you get her on board with knowing that there's this thing that we have to do and work for, and, you know, be professional and still be respectful of that time. For me, and with Yaya especially, because I think that she's a daddy's girl. So it's even more. But I had to take it back to it for those parents out there. You might be familiar with this term, but priming. It was all about priming Yaya.
This also works great for employees.
Yeah. And animals. Just so priming, remember that. Yeah. But it all had to do with priming. And what that meant in practice is that I would have to work. And let's just say that I had a meeting, and let's just say that 10:30 to 12 is my meeting times and whatnot. The rest of the times I'm kind of, you know, I'm working at the computer, and she's keeping herself busy and maybe popping in for a question or two, but I'll go ahead and I'll tell her in advance. And I said, hey, by the way, at 10:30 here, and I'll use something as a sign if she can't understand time, or I'll set an alarm and I'll say, hey, once this alarm goes off.
No. She knows how to set her own alarm now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, this was a work in progress.
Yes.
So it
Okay.
took time to condition this into her habits. But I would tell her at like 10:30, like, hey, by the way, or a few minutes before, I'm going to have to step away in a meeting. I'm going to have my headphones in, so I cannot hear you. I will be talking, so I can't be bothered. But I'm going to go ahead and close this door because I have a little cubicle inside the house. It's my office.
I stuck him in the laundry room.
But I tell her, again, priming. I would tell her, I'm going to be busy 10 o'clock. I'm going to have my headphones in. I cannot hear you. I'm going to close this door. And what that means is that I'm going to be busy and I have to focus on the call because I have to talk with somebody for a meeting. But when I'm finished, I'm going to go ahead and open the door, and I'll let you know that once the door is open, that I can go ahead and see if you need anything. But until that point, I trust you. You're a big girl. If you need anything, please take care of yourself.
Yes.
I know right now, parents are probably like, oh my goodness, like, take care of herself. What do you mean?
She can cook eggs and make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and she can do all kinds of stuff. But Raquel just put, both of her kids are on board about her business and they understand it. She has a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old, and they know that mom has to work for a better future. I love that understanding. But here's the big difference that Raquel's doing that a lot of people may not be doing is the weekend. When the weekend comes, she's 100% dedicated to them. So whether this is your kids or your spouse or just yourself, it's creating boundaries so there's a clear understanding of, hey, I have to do this now, but the weekend comes, I'm 100% dedicated to you. And Donna Lisa's like, I just love watching the you two. Thank you, Donna Lisa.
She a Hugo.
She is
native.
Choctaw Nation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got my hat on. So it's setting clear boundaries. And we make mistakes. Like, we learned. My 26-year-old, like, I did some really crappy things as a parent. Not bad, just like, I worked a lot and we were young, and that's what we thought we were supposed to do. And it's one of those things that you only know what you know when you know it. And now you know different. But what do you do here's the question, because this is where Libby's at right now.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do when you're in a deficit, right? Raquel said, oh, what when the weekend comes on, 100% dedicated to them. Chris can take the weekend off. Libby's over here because she said yes to everything. And she's in a deficit right now.
Okay.
She overcommitted, like she always does.
So,
and I have to now work through the weekend because I've overcommitted and said yes to certain things that I shouldn't have done.
Oh, even if there were things that you should have done, like that fits inside of your vision. So let me take this example for a second. Is the container that you have is your life.
Yeah.
And sometimes your visions or your goals, your aspirations can't fit inside that container as it stands right now. And so what happens is it spills out into life.
Mm-hmm. I'm reading comments.
Yeah. No, I know.
Oh,
but it spills out into life. And so what has to happen? Something else has to soak it up, or you have to cut out some of that vision. Mm-hmm. And so it's like the trade-off of what is it and what are you willing to sacrifice? If everything is 100%, let's just pretend like everything is 100% perfectly aligned with your vision, your goal, your greater purpose, what do you sacrifice? Do you neglect the kids and continue pushing this vision and it's 100% intentional? Or do you have to sacrifice and cut off some of that vision and start to dumb it down a little bit?
And that's okay. Someone posted on my, one of the posts on my profile said the last 18 months has been amazing. He actually dialed it back and it's been great because you can't always be in growth mode, even personally. Like, it can't always be growth. Like, if you're always growing, that's a wild, dangerous ride. There's got to be certain times or seasons of like stability, implementation, right? Like reset. And And, you know, the first thing I did when I noticed, and so the reason I got myself into trouble is because I said overcommitted, like a lot of us do, especially if you're a mom. But we had a really subpar, great person, but not a great employee. And I'm picking up some of that slack.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's back to being my fault.
Yeah.
And, you know, I told my assistant, just clear my schedule. I'm taking no more appointments or no more anything for the next 4 weeks. Like I need to realign. I need focus time. And, you know, I blocked out Fridays for the kids, but it's just it's readjusting.
Yeah.
It's readjusting because if you're living your same way and then something happens as the owner, right, it gets piled on top of you.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God.
So real quick, I see Joanne Bracco's on here.
Joanne, good morning,
Good morning.
Joanne. We love you. Dawn said we did something similar with getting out of debt. Yeah, that wasn't that the greatest analogy ever. If you guys missed it, go back and watch the replay. It really, really, and she put something on the fridge that was colored. But that was a super cool analogy to get the family on board. So again, with what Dawn said, you know, my oldest is on board and Austin works in Woot Recruit.
Mm-hmm.
He does some data entry stuff. Billy, our oldest, works full time and Organize It, does all of our marketing, social media marketing. And he also helps Joanne as well with her social media marketing for Love Thy Neighbor and her cleaning company. So he's fully committed, understands, but it's going back, you know, we started over with a 6-year-old. Well, my kids are all 10 years apart. So, you know, we had to start over with Yaya. And I'm like, man, I'm so driven towards the goal. I don't know how many of you are like that. Like, I just love what I do and I could work all the time and I'm so driven and I have all these giant aspirations and goals. And I'm like, wait a minute. Ooh, I got to slow down.
Yeah.
Because I have a 6-year-old.
Yeah. And so I will say right now we are going through the process and I got to say this, you know, life is never static. It's never always going to be the same. You're never always going to stick to your goals. We got to constantly readjust and realign.
So you want to know what we did? Oh, go ahead, finish.
No, it's fine.
What we did to adjust and realign, you know, how life is not static, neither is business. We cut 108. Wait, let's see what we cut.
The stats.
I'm going to get my actual numbers. I got to go off of it. Oh, wait, no, it's a 2.
Yeah.
So to realign and reassess, right? Because otherwise, who pays for it when we don't have great processes, we're overwhelmed, we're overspending on things, maybe you have inefficient employees.
Or you want to take, again, that container that fits your vision. If you try to put some of that into another container, how much is that container costing you?
So talking about it's not static, business is not static, life is not static. We sat down and you get to that point of like, you're tired of like certain things, or you lowered your expectations or you're expecting more. Me and Chris sat down, and in 2 weeks, we cut out $118,846 because of inefficiencies. And that's why I said I had gotten myself into trouble. When something isn't working right, instead of, you know, it gets put on you. Oh, on you. Oh, like you pick up the slack. And, you know, you get to a point to where you're like, I'm tired of this. Like, let's readjust. And so when we did that readjust, and we have a whole process on how we do this. You can do it in life and you can do it in business. It's time audit sheets. It's the day in the life interview. It's the concept of applying pressure to create a diamond.
And so these are all going to be in your book.
They're all in the book. But this process is amazing because we sat down and cut $118,846 out. We saved that much money in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks, because of just looking at how, you know what, life has changed. We need to make some adjustments. We can't just let it keep going.
Yeah. Operational inefficiencies
as a small business will eat us alive from the inside out.
Yeah. So I want to keep going with this conversation, but I just want to drop in real quick. And I think Kat.
Hey, Kat, I'm going to have lunch with you today. I love seeing your faces too.
And then Raquel was like, I did sacrifice time with my kids for a long time. However, through the years, I was able to balance my business and family, but it took a while. And yes, it did take a while. It's even taken us time right now because we're working through it.
Well, here's the thing. We figured it out. But then the business changed and that didn't work anymore.
Yeah.
So this is where we fail as entrepreneurs or even as parents. We worked it out. We figured it out. It was golden. But then something happens in your business, a bad hire, a fire, like a recession, a pandemic, a hurricane, and then that doesn't work anymore. And so what you have to do is go realign.
It really is a hard reset on your business. It's like you keep stacking the stuff up when there's issues, but you have to tear it all down and then figure out what's supposed to go back and what goes in the trash.
Yep. And because I didn't realign fast enough, that's when I noticed, hey, I'm not paying enough attention to the kids. Like, hey, I'm not present because I needed to do a realignment.
Yep.
Chris is around a little bit more with the kids than I am, because I got a few that I'm running where he helps primarily in Woot Recruit. But I did not realign fast enough because I was dealing with a couple inefficiencies, fires maybe that I needed to make or readjustments. So do you know what we did? We took the day off. We took Thursday off and just went and said, okay, we need to realign. We need to adjust our schedules. And we also need to do some reorganizing of some of the positions, people in the company, to make up for these things. Because if not, at the end of the day, who pays is you and the kids and your marriage. Because if I was going to carry all of that weight after that misalignment happened in our company, I would be miserable working all day and night trying to figure out things while my kids resent me.
Yep. So we're in the process right now of, and again, I think this is constant, and then we have our couples quarterly coming up soon.
Yep.
But it's a constant realignment with our perfect week on making sure that things lock in beautifully with life, with business, because it's all interconnected. So I'm working through that process right now with Yaya, in making sure that, again, I was failing as a father recently because I've been so invested in work, and there's been some things on my perfect week that wasn't getting done that I set to make sure that I carved that time out, but I didn't carve the time out. And I address, again, I'm in this extreme transparency mode right now where I'm trying to make sure that everything is 100% out in the open so that nothing builds up. But I actually sat down with Austin last night and we had a serious one-to-one talk, about 30 minutes to an hour, really just honestly asking about his future self. And then the outcome there, and then tracing it back to now, and then how I fit into that as well with the way that I'm living my life. Again, I'm neglecting, not allowing them to be driven with me. So I had to sit down. I just had to get it out there, pull some things back. Cause honestly, if I keep working,
the work's always going to be there.
Then what's the point in living? What's the point in life? If
the work's always going to be there.
Yeah.
Chris, when he first started working in the companies with me, it's funny because he would try to get things done before he in the day. This was years ago. And he's like, well, I'm trying to finish every ticket, or I'm trying to answer every email. I said, honey, those things never stop. They never stop coming in. This was when he helped me over and organize it. I'm like, oh, it's a never ending trail.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to be there all day. But just learning that the work never stops, as for my owners, spouses, we all have different pressures. So I operate with a little bit more stress and pressure because I have more responsibility. Where, I love the fact that Chris can have a little bit more freedom with the kids because he doesn't need to assume that pressure. I do not think both spouses should assume the same risks and stresses or pressures of the business, distribute them, because it's a lot for one person. There's no reason why he should be worried about certain things when he's not built like an entrepreneur yet. Like, he's grooming himself, and because some things don't bother me. We're just like, whatever. And then I
get triggered.
They keep him up at night. So Leonard said, Chris, that was me too.
Yeah.
So, distribute those properly. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing is, business and life and our kids are ever evolving, and it constantly needs realignment. So so that your kids are on board and your
Mhm.
spouse is on board. Because with our business, I mean, the amount of people that come in and out of our business changes the health and stability of our businesses, which impacts us personally. Because we either have to do a new hire, a retrain, cover for that missing person. And so, because the business changes so much, but we don't adjust our personal lives to compensate for that or align,
Yep.
I think that's when we start to get ourselves into trouble. Chris mentioned our couples quarterly. So if you guys are interested, we could try to share as much as we can, but we do a 2-day quarterly where we leave completely from our house. You can do a staycation. And I have a whole agenda of how it's laid out, inner scorecards, outer scorecards, personal values, family values, personal vision, family
Self-sabotage.
vision. How do we self-sabotage? Exercises to work all of that stuff out.
Yeah.
And it's an actually amazing process to work through.
Mm-hmm.
And we do it every 3 months because we do it for my entrepreneurs. Do this before your company quarterly. Because we go into the company and then have you ever come out with like all these rocks or these to-dos, like projects, and you're like, well, crap, why did I get all this stuff?
And what do you want to come first in life?
Yeah. And so do this before your company quarterly meetings so that you can go into your company quarterly meeting with the right expectations of what you want personally from life and from your business.
Yeah.
And then you can assume the right responsibilities.
Yeah. So I'd love to circle back to, we got our Apple Watches are dinging like crazy. But I want to take it back to the kids real quick. And
I'm off to a great start.
Nice.
Congratulations.
I sat down with Austin last night. And again, like I told you, I talked a little bit about, honestly, his future self 5 years from now, what that looks like, what it feels like, what it smells like. And just trying to circle it back and pinpoint it to now what needs to be true to happen to keep moving forward towards that for his future, and to make sure that I am also helping out in that. So I'm going to be working with him today on putting together his perfect week.
Mm-hmm.
And start to put little pieces of consistency to get him moving towards his goal, so that there's no assumptions, because I think that's where things get really, really nasty in family sometimes, is that,
and in business,
is that you leave everything subjective. It ends up falling apart because you're not keeping an eye on it the right way. It's just subjective, like it's just too loose. So trying to add elements of checkpoints and things.
What's that saying? Assuming makes a what out of you and me?
I don't want to say it because I don't want to get kicked
off.
Get
banned from Facebook. But yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to at least create those checkpoints and cadences so that, yes, there's subjective stuff in his life, but at least if he knows that something's coming and he has the things blocked out on his calendar, and we start to repeat that, make it habit. Again, it says it takes 21 days to develop habit.
21 times.
21 times or days, I say, depending on how frequently it is. But
it's 7 to 21, but
yeah,
let's just say 21.
Okay. But it's just making it a habit. And so starting now with him, making checkpoints so that he doesn't fail on himself, because I think that's a lot of times with kids is you try to treat them like adults. And sometimes you're in this like frustrated state of prove me wrong. And then you just kind of tell them one thing, and then you just sit there and look at it at the corner of your eye and say, he's going to mess up. He's going to mess up.
Well, I mean, we know this. Most adults can't even manage themselves.
Yeah.
So let alone a teenager, because Austin's 16. And there's a lot of assumption. I think that's probably one of the biggest issues in life, and one of the best things that I've learned out of complete and utter transparency. I've lost a lot of friends off of it, but there's no assuming.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to give him the grace of like being real and helping him to set up his expectations, because I know it was even hard for me. So I can't just throw something out there and say, good luck, you better pass, otherwise there's going to be an issue. No. It's setting checkpoints and helping to kind of coach and correct.
Yep. And, we don't have this nailed at all. It's a learning progress for us. I would say I'm doing like a million times better than I was doing a year or 2 or 5 or 10 years ago. And so we're just sharing like the struggles. Like I woke up this morning saying like, I suck as a mother. I need to get my crap together. And it's just because like I've fallen off the wagon. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get more consistent at certain things right now because one of the businesses is consuming me. And you know, we and I'm not saying this to like stroke my own ego, but we've made it look so nice that our 26-year-old has reached out to us because he wants help structuring his day, Mom. He's like, Mom, I need help. Like you seem to get like things done and you seem organized. And he's like, but I can't figure out how to do it. So whether it's a 6-year-old who doesn't understand certain things, we use technology a lot, like Alexa or Google for the reminders, or like, hey, it's time to stop working. Like even it tells Chris like, hey, it's 5 o'clock, stop working. Or using, or for a 16-year-old, using something like teaching him to use Google Calendars, or our 26-year-old who's reaching out to like, hey, for some reason, I can't manage my time. And I think that whether it's kids or our employees, our staff, one of the biggest things I seen was the lack of kind of just the ability to self-control. Like, you know, they don't know how to manage time, and there's no such thing as time management, but they don't know how to block time. And this is hard for everybody, but the hardest part is the realigning.
Yeah.
Because once you're like, oh, I got a schedule. Yay, I made it. Like how many times have we made a schedule? Just say like your scheduler in the office or your own schedule at home. And then you don't readjust it when life changes and we fall off the wagon.
And if it's a long time until you readjust, then it's an even bigger issue.
Yes. So I do talk about a lot of this in the book that we're writing. And, you know, I always recommend to look at your perfect weeks, look at your schedules, look at your time audits. Time audit sheets are exercise we have all of our staff do. But these things, and we even have a family calendar perfect week. But these things need to be looked at on a regular cadence. And my suggestion is quarterly, once every 3 months, do a hard realignment, reset, so that it's in line with the phase of where you're at personally, professionally, and also where you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say that an extra little thing here is with Yaya and even Austin, it's really cool. I'll say that I haven't really said this, but it's really cool to see how into it they get with using technology to create bumpers around their life.
Yes.
Austin, he's got some wicked routines with like his face and everything. He has his Google Home. So it's like, hey, Google, set me a 15-minute timer. And he's over there and he's doing his thing. And
he gets up every day at the same time, like 4:30
in the morning. It's insane.
He works out. Like he's gotten so much structure, but he uses technology to help keep him accountable. And I think that is a great cheat code. Like if you're comfortable with it.
And so this is where it gets this murky middle, is that it's like the whole tech and distraction and whatever with kids. But I know that some parents might be a little bit scared to give them too much technology, but at the same time, it's the little things like Yaya. It's like, hey, I got to be busy, but in 15 minutes, I'm going to be available to you. Okay. And then she knows now, but I had to, again, prime her and say, why don't you go ahead and set a 15-minute alarm? Tell Alexa that at 10:45 to stop.
So the funny part is I'm ringing Leonard. He said, yes, we just discussed scheduling, timesheet correction, and the difficulties. Oh, you're going to laugh at me. But I learned, so in my professional organizing days, when I would work with autistic children or kids that had ADD, ADHD, we used technology a lot because they had a hard time paying attention, a hard time remembering. So I used tech a lot, and I used Alexa and Google Homes to set up schedules for children. It worked really, really well. So well that I used the same technology to set up the schedule for Organize It. So it would like ding, ding, it's Lisa's time to go to lunch, like ding, ding, it's time for this. And it was funny because it really worked well to get people in line, like not in line, but like everyone craves, whether they're 6-year-old Yaya or 16-year-old or part of our team, they crave stability.
Yeah.
And if we can provide that stability feeling, like they know what's next, they know they go to lunch every day at 12, like they know what's happening, it provides comfort.
It's keeping everybody on the same beat. And I'm
Yeah.
laughing because I'm thinking to myself in salsa classes, it's like, all right, find the one.
Yeah. And so I used tech to set up the office and organize it to ding. I used Google to ding when it was time for everyone to do different things. Because we noticed that like everyone would go to lunch at the same time. You're like, oh my God, like somebody's got to stay here. So we staggered everything. We made perfect weeks for certain things when it was time for them to learn, because I always want everyone to spend some time learning. And that really helps get the office staff on track. It was funny. I did that years ago.
Yeah.
But now we use it with our kids, and it's part of where the perfect week came from. Anything else before we wrap up?
No, I think that's it. Is just you. I mean, one last thing here, and it's not being afraid to lean in to your kids. If you have kids, if not, if you have a spouse or whatever, but don't be afraid to lean into them and ask them to take some of this little stuff off your plate. I think sometimes, and I can't quite relate because I'm not a mother, but I can only assume that sometimes you feel like you have to take on everything, the weight of the world. You have to slice their oranges. You have to make their lunch. You have to, get things prepared, and the clothes are set out at night for school.
Oh my God, I did all that with Billy at 26.
Yeah.
I don't do any of that anymore with Yaya. She makes her own lunch and she puts her own clothes on because she wants to pick out. She's so creative. She wants her own outfit. And I'm like, there was a Facebook post going on with like moms sharing their cute lunches that they made for their kids. And I comment, I'm like, I must be a horrible parent because I don't do that. I'm like, she makes her own lunch.
But real quick, and then I think I saw Leonard here or Dawn and Leonard dropped something in here, but real quick. I gave Yaya, I have a couple things that I do as like a blocking mechanism. Blocking is basically like having repeated phrases or something that is instantly remembered. But I tell her like there's 3 things in the morning that you have to do. It's teeth, dogs, get ready. And then basically that tells her, and I have her repeat it. I had her repeat it a couple of times, again, building habit. But now all I have to do in the morning is say, Yaya, can you take care of the 3 things? And she's like, oh, okay. And then she'll go and do it. And then if she ever gets stuck at any point, I'm like, what's left of the 3 things? Okay, well, dogs and get ready. Okay, great. So we have that in place. And then the same thing, more so for the nighttime, is I taught the kids and training them. We got to get the house hotel ready.
Yeah, so that's our term here. Chris's term, hotel ready.
Yeah.
One, their mom is an organizer and she can't function if the house is messy and it makes her irritable.
So it works because because we take them to certain events and stuff when we travel. And so they're used to being in hotels. And so they know what it looks like and feels like and smells like.
This is also a great term for your cleaning technicians, for all my cleaning business owners.
Yeah.
Like if they're cleaning a house, and Leonard just said, I'm sorry, I know this was about kids, but he asked me something about the business. Leonard, everything is business to me. It's okay. Yeah. Is it hotel ready? And why is that a great term with our cleaning technicians? Because they know what a hotel looks like, feels like, smells like. Is it hotel ready? Like when you leave a bathroom, is it hotel ready? When you leave a bedroom, is it hotel ready? It's a really great analogy that everyone can visualize and relate to.
It's that common enemy. Yeah. But that's what I wanted to say, is just creating those blocking moments with your life. Lean on them, let them do it, because they're smarter than you think. And there's a lot more capabilities that we're probably not even, allowing Yaya to do, but I'm trying to kind of push her more.
Yes.
Same with Austin, taking that next level.
So Leonard asked us, because I talked about how we use technology to help create schedules and reminders. I did it when I was organizing for children that had like ADD and ADHD. And then I did it for my office staff, and Leonard wanted to know, is your office staff cross-trained? Leonard, yes. everyone knows how to do everything, but they may not be great at it, but they know how to do it. The same thing in our house. Everyone in our house is cross-trained. They all know how to make dinner. Everybody knows how to feed the dogs. Everybody knows how to water the plants. Like everybody knows how to do certain things. So but there's a primary person that's responsible for it if that person so happens to be out or is sick. So that's my answer. Yes, everyone is cross-trained. You just have to have some good training so that they know how to do certain things or know how to find the solution. Yes. So I love this topic because it's a topic I woke up and asked myself this question. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I neglecting my kids? Like I need to readjust. I need to realign. I know I'm not neglecting my kids. Like,
and by the way, we did tell Yaya. I went into her room and I told her, hey, by the way, we're going to be doing our live here in a minute. So we'll go ahead and close the door and we'll be done with that here. So go ahead and take care of yourself. By the way, I did say that this morning as well. So lean into them.
Yep. And so at the end of the day, when I mean neglecting, I mean, are we doing what we want to be doing for our kids? Are we living the life we want to be living? And when our businesses start to affect that, that is when we need to realign. That is when we need to go back to our schedules, realign, cut out things. Don't you love when you like had this to-do list, right? You see all these issues on the issues list and they just kind of sit there. And maybe you missed a meeting, maybe you didn't have time to get to all of them. How often do so many of those become irrelevant?
Just take it. Like
irrelevant. So many things that we worry about, so much of the little stuff. Like you're like, if I didn't do this, what would happen? If I didn't, actually, a lot of times, nothing. So John said, you are a family in biz and have to pick up the slack. Yep. When they're out. And that's true. And that's why we need alignment. So super excited. If you guys, again, want to follow some of our health journeys, we're doing that over on Instagram because I shared a few pictures. They're a little risque. And I was like, that's not professional. It's just what I look like now, like losing as much weight as we have. And, you know, so many, I just got a private message now, like, what diet are you on? And so we're sharing that over there. We'll keep you guys updated with our couples retreat because mine and Chris's goal, if you guys are interested, we want to host a couples retreat in 2025 with couples that are interested in growing themselves and their businesses and their families, their families and their businesses.
And figuring out how to live with a monster.
Yeah. I'm the monster. That's supposed to be a joke. But if you guys are interested in that, like we would love to hear some insight of, hey, yeah, that's something I'd be into doing. We've been practicing it for a while and I have the whole framework and it's absolutely amazing. And it is a 2-day commitment. Leonard laughed. Yes, I am a monster, Leonard. You know me. So anyways, I hope you guys have a great weekend and we will see you next Saturday.
Bye, guys.